Brooke, I'm so happy to have you on the podcast. It's been like over 2 years since we've had a discussion about your everything you're doing. So this is exciting.
Yes, it's so exciting. I can't wait to dive into things and to be back on the TMO podcast. I'm very, very honored, and it's always so fun to talk to you and catch up.
Let's just share with everyone listening. Tell us about what does Lessons by Brooke and Company look like right now? Why should we be listening to you? Which
Yes.
I could tell everybody, but I want you to tell us how amazing it is what you run.
You are so sweet. Thank you so much. Some days it feels amazing and some days it feels very scary and overwhelming. So I will try to paint it in the most honest and best light for us here today. But my name is Brooke Schrager and I am the founder and studio manager at Lessons by Brooke and Company. We teach customized in-home private music lessons to students in the Chicagoland area, mostly in person. We do still have a few students that we are teaching virtually for various reasons, whether they've moved or they just prefer virtual lessons, or after the lockdown phase of the pandemic, if their teacher was not able to commute to them any longer due to a move or things like that. We are still online with, I don't know, maybe 7% of our students. It's not quite 10, but maybe it's 7. And so we service all of these students in the areas of piano, voice, guitar, theory, composition, violin, viola, I think, saxophone. We got a saxophone student right now. So basically anything that people come to us with a need for, we do our best to pair them with a teacher. And currently we are operating with 26 teachers and we teach about 300 students throughout the Chicagoland area, suburb city, and then also those online students. So it's a beast. Wow. It really, really is. Yeah. And since the last time we spoke, I think that we've probably grown significantly.
I think you've doubled. The last time, I think there were 11 teachers that you had hired.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the last time we talked, we were kind of coming out of that lockdown phase of the pandemic and we were still very much online and making the transition. But I am very proud to say that we survived. We are stronger and better than ever coming out of that time. And it would not have been possible without the resources from Teach Music Online. I am not just saying that because I'm on this podcast and I'm talking to you, Carly. It truly, when I found that webinar about online student engagement, I think it was August of 2020, we were in the thick of that lockdown phase and we were very new still, less than 6 months from March of 2020 into August of 2020 into teaching these online lessons. And the resources and the things that I have found within Teach Music Online have made it so that all of these kids have been able to have an opportunity to have lessons, because it would have been very easy during that time to give up and throw in the towel. And you created space for us and resources for us and a community for us really to be able to make it so we can thrive. So we are where we are today, partially thanks to you. And if you're listening to this podcast, hopefully you are either a multi-teacher studio that is sharing some of the joys and the pains of being a multi-teacher studio or a multi-teacher studio owner with me. Or you are thinking about kind of expanding and maybe you are a solo teacher right now that has more students on a wait list than you can fill, or you're looking to grow your business in some ways and be able to reach more students and be able to help other teachers with this beautiful line of work. So whatever, if you're listening to this from any of those facets or just because you're interested and curious, welcome. And I hope this is a helpful episode.
Oh, you are the best. That was such a great intro into what we're going to talk about, because I think it's true. A lot of teachers get to this point where they think a couple of things, like maybe what's next for me? How can my next 10 years, 20 years look a little different, because they're maybe tired at where they are, or they need it. They have too many students, they have a wait list, and they have this desire to start offloading maybe some of those students. So we're going to just talk through all of it. So tell me about when you were at that crossroads, when you decided to hire teachers, because it is a big change to go from doing just your own students to now, it's been 4 years, or how long has it been?
Since 2016. So I opened in 2016 and I thought it was going to be me and 30 students. I was a 7th and 8th grade school teacher, public school, choir and general music. in the suburbs here in the Chicagoland area. And I didn't love that public school environment. I had always taught private lessons during college and I really loved it. And in my dissatisfaction with being in the
Mm.
classroom setting, I was trying to just think of like, what can I do to make money that makes me happy? And it was teaching private lessons. And I'm very, very blessed that my family kind of all lives in this area. And I was able to teach some of my first and second and even first removed cousins. I was able to help them in their musical journeys. And they referred me to friends and neighbors and this and that.
Yeah.
And very, very quickly, when I said, hey, this is what I'm going to do, this is going to be my last year in the school and I'm going to pivot, it became me and 35 or 40 students, depending on the week, and a giganto wait list. And if you're familiar with the Chicagoland area, you know that the suburbs here are pretty spread out. It's a big, metro area. And there were some days where I was driving an hour in
Mm.
between students just to meet the needs of their scheduling, or I would have a full day in one area, but I could not make it to a kid on my wait list in another area on that day. And that happened for probably, I want to say like 4 months where I was full, nobody
Yeah.
was moving or taking a break, and the wait list and the calls just kept coming in. And I didn't know anybody at the time that was doing travel teaching with a multi-teacher studio situation. I, growing
Mm.
up, taught lessons at a music school where I would go to the physical location and there were multiple practice rooms. So that was kind of the only model that I knew. And even my private
Right.
teachers growing up, for oboe, I went to her house. For piano, she came to my house. For voice lessons, it was within the four walls of my high school. I was very lucky to have that. So I didn't know that travel teaching and having multiple teachers work for you was even a thing.
Mm.
However, my dad has a contracting business and he has multiple people that have worked for him. My mom owns her own business, and I had a lot of business
Mm.
startup type resources. I already knew how to use QuickBooks. I already knew how to like schedule and piece together routing and things like that. And it just kind of became a next natural step. And I was lucky that I went to college locally as well. So I went
Mhm.
to a school where I still had a lot of connections. I was only 2 years out of graduating at that point in time when I made this giant leap, which now looking back at that, I'm like, what the heck was I thinking? But it just kind of happened and felt natural to do it. And
Yeah.
and I remember at that like 4 month point after I was really doing this mostly full time, I woke up one morning and I just thought literally I can picture where I was in my bedroom and I woke up and I was like, oh, I should just call Marissa. I should call Marissa. And maybe Marissa will want to teach some lessons. And maybe I can handle like the annoying back end stuff and do
Yeah.
the business and the routing and the scheduling and all of that and plan all the recitals. And maybe she can just teach the lessons. Like I think at that time she had a point 0.8 position at a school. So she wasn't quite full time. And I knew that, any amount of income can help when you're a first year teacher right out of school. And I called her and I was like, hey, would you be interested in being my guinea pig in this? And she was like, sure. And she was about a year younger than me in school. We had worked together in the music department and it kind of became the perfect situation. So
Wow.
right after it worked out with Marissa, thank goodness, she gave me lots of feedback. We went over processes, procedures, contracts, payment, all of these things.
Mhm.
I was able to hire a few people in a similar situation, a couple people that were currently student teaching, again from my college. And
Mhm.
then they transitioned to their full time jobs and eventually moved on from it. But I also was starting to hire at that period of time some current college students. And actually, one of them is still with us today. So, June, I think, will be his
Wow.
7 year anniversary with us, if I'm counting correctly. It's either 6 or 7. And he still has a full studio of students, and some of them are still from those first round that he started with. And it's amazing to
Yeah.
see that kind of growth and longevity.
Yeah.
And really that's kind of how we ended up where we were. It was born out of a desire to reach more families and more students
Mhm.
and to be able to bring more music into people's homes. And there clearly was a need for in-home lessons in this area because people were
Mhm.
calling me and waiting on a wait list for 4 months because they couldn't
It's
find someone
so
else.
convenient. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, and I wanted to clarify for everyone listening, you don't have a brick and mortar. This is
No.
a completely remote, where you're remote and your teachers are traveling. And that is such a cool business model because so many students prefer someone comes to their house. And it's like, from the teacher's point of view, not the best. But when you can find teachers who are willing to do that, and you are so expert at grouping them in areas where, like, okay, I'm not having a student or a teacher travel like more than an hour probably between lessons like you used to, but you're able to now group them. Like, what a great setup when you have such a big city with all these suburbs.
And we really try to keep it even shorter than that. Like if I can keep between students 15 minutes or less, that's the best. There's a couple of suburbs where
It's
literally a
amazing.
teacher parks here and goes down the street and teaches all those kids because we just keep getting referred from word of mouth and things like that. And
Right.
I wanted to touch on something you said too. It's not always ideal for teachers to travel home to home. And part of the beauty of having online lessons or the option for
Mhm.
online lessons is that no one has to travel, which is really great. And you've given so many wonderful resources for how to make online lessons truly a positive experience where kids can learn and
Mhm.
grow. And it's not, pulling out hair and eyelashes for the teacher. It becomes a mutually beneficial experience that way. But for
Yeah.
people that do want an in-home experience and teachers that do want to teach in people's homes,
Mhm.
I personally find that having that connection with your students, not only in the one on one setting, but being in their home on their piano with their pets, seeing their families,
Yeah.
there's something special about that. And obviously, you can make a little bit more per lesson with the travel situation than you would at
Mhm.
a brick and mortar where the students are kind of coming and rotating through. So there is different strokes for different folks
Oh,
for sure.
totally.
And I think that the this multi-teacher studio model doesn't just have to be for travel lessons. Of course, it can definitely work on an
Yes.
online lesson setting. So I don't want anybody to feel like me talking about my experiences putting it in a box
Oh,
because it
no.
really isn't.
Yeah. Well, and I wanted to say it's so neat to talk to you now 7 years later and help teachers kind of have an overview of, like, here's what to look out for, here's what to be aware of. This is the type of personality you might need to be, a manager versus the teacher, because you've mentioned that before, how, there are way different struggles with running a business when you're not the one teaching that you're having to deal with, like personalities and a teacher that doesn't jive with a student and the legal, all the insurance and all the stuff. And you actually did an amazing workshop for us inside Teach Music Online. So those who are listening who are members, they can go access that and learn how to run a multi-teacher studio. And you really break it down into like bite size, like here's what to consider for each of these. But hopefully today we can give them like a good head start.
Yes, yes. So overview, I can say
Yeah.
that when I made the decision that this is what I was going to do, the first thing that I did was I looked for general liability insurance. And even if you're teaching online, I think it's important to just look into what that might look like for you because you may need it, you may not need it, depending on your state, depending on your setup. Talking
Yeah.
to a good insurance agent that can help you with that is very important. I also think having an accountant on hand, um, a CPA, someone that can do your taxes for you, but also somebody that may be able to do bookkeeping if that's not your strong suit. Like I said, I was fortunate enough that in some little like chores and little jobs around my childhood, I was able to learn QuickBooks. So I don't have a bookkeeper. I do all of that by hand still, but accounting and bookkeeping is a professional service that if those aren't your strong suits, I would look into that. And also an
Yeah.
accountant can help advise you tax things in your area, deciding between independent contractor and
Right.
employee. I think it's really important to talk to those two professionals and then potentially a lawyer or an attorney. And the
Mhm.
lawyer or the attorney can also advise you on independent contractor versus employee situations, but they can also help you draw up contracts and things like that. And um, knock on wood, I have not needed to use actual legal services in any type of litigation or anything like that from my lawyer. But
Mhm.
having them write up the contracts and things like that is really really helpful to make sure that you have all of your ducks in a row and that you
Yeah.
know what you're doing from the legal, the accounting, and the insurance perspectives. And those people will also help you talk through the logistics of things like how you want your business to be set up. Maybe you are a sole proprietor or a self-employed person and you are ending up wanting to go more the LLC or S Corp route as you hire people. So there's a lot of things to think about. And I
Yeah.
did go more in detail in that workshop, but that's just like the very high level, kind of some starting points, I think.
And you're such a good example of it. It grew with you. Like you hired as needed. I think it would be wrong for a teacher to think, I'm going to advertise and get 300 students this summer because that sounds quite overwhelming to have to hire all these teachers at once because there's
Mhm.
a significant amount of training that you do to ensure that these teachers are a good representative of your brand.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say start with one. And if it can't be somebody like in my situation, like my Marissa, who I trusted wholeheartedly to give me honest feedback, um, no matter what, be honest with the person that this is your first time doing this. And there will be people that will be excited and interested to be
Mhm.
on board and to be the first one to be a part of something. It's kind of like a startup in that sense. You know, when
Yeah.
people become part of a startup business, they're in it because they believe in the mission of the company and they think that the service that they're providing is cool and neat and would be helpful for people. And if you look at it that same way, which is sometimes hard for artists and teachers to
Yeah.
believe that we have to act like a business entity now when you're in this expansion mode. But it is true. You're like a startup business, and there will be somebody out there that will believe in your mission, that will want to join you and help
Yeah.
you and partner in this in this endeavor.
Yes, something that you mentioned was finding people that are interested, and it sometimes we need to remember that everyone has different personality and work, interest, and so because one thing I thought was no one's gonna wanna drive to students' homes and earn less because, of course, we're taking a cut because we're the ones doing all the admin, when in reality, you have found teachers who are happy to be the one who's not dealing with any of the admin. All they need to do is show up and teach, and they're saving that time. So we don't want anyone to assume that finding those people is impossible because everyone has a different personality.
No, and it doesn't all have to be new, young, fresh teachers. There are people in every phase of their career that may be looking
Right.
for private teaching. So I know I mentioned that the first people that I hired were fresh out of college in their student teaching periods, or even in college. But I do think that it would be really useful to look at people in graduate programs, people in postgraduate ages. And I've hired amazing, amazing teachers that have been with us a long time in all
Yeah.
of those areas.
Oh, this is so great. Okay, so tell us, for someone considering this 7 years later, like what does your day to day look like in your work?
Yes.
What does Brooke do to manage this enormous thing? And you've built a lot of systems in place that keep you from having to do all of it. But what does it look like right now for you?
Yes, such a great question. So every day is a little bit different, which is something that I love. I think that I felt a little bit creatively stifled in the school
Sure.
system, teaching like the same six classes every single day. I wasn't allowed to do any extracurriculars or ensembles there. So the pivot to having freedom and every day a little bit different was so shiny and new for me. And it still is all of this time later. I love the fact that I can go to lunch with a friend or with my mom and make different times for work later, or I can take a Monday
Mm,
off if I need to. I can go to the doctor, I can get my hair cut, things like that that I didn't have the freedom and flexibility to do coming from the school setting. But on a daily basis, I am doing everything from talking to our teachers if there's a potential issue, talking to parents about different scheduling formats, or if anybody has a conflict
mm,
coming up, I'm doing that conflict coordination. Some people may choose to do things like that through a system, Opus One, my music staff, Fonz. That is not the direction that we have gone. Everything is pretty manual still here. We use
mhm.
Google Suite for everything, Google Calendar, Google Drive,
Yeah, you haven't changed that
spreadsheets.
then.
Nope,
That's still
haven't changed
working for
it.
you.
It
Yeah.
it's working so well, and parents have expressed that they are relieved that they don't have to log into an extra thing. So even
Okay.
though it does kind of feel like a lot of emails and, calendar invitations and spreadsheets and things like that, it works for us. This is kind of that system that's in place.
Yeah.
And so we are leaving it for this period of time at least.
You
But
have
everything is done.
repeating events in a
Yep,
calendar with the student and
exactly.
the teacher, right? And then
Mhm, yep,
they're like it's you
mhm,
invite the parties onto that. So is the teacher connected in on those events
yes,
and
yeah.
you
Every teacher has their own Google Calendar that I have created.
okay.
So the teachers are co-owners with me. We can both make adjustments as
Yeah.
needed. And then the parents and the students are invited to those. And it's really cool to actually see as the kids get older. Now we have a bunch of teenagers that have taken lessons with us for a long time. And their parents say, hey, can you add so and so's email address? Because we're teaching them to manage their own calendar. So it's
Mm,
cool to see the kids get older and become a part of that as well, helping them with organizational skills, more than just the music for sure. But those types of things are taking up, I would say, the majority of my time on a regular basis is the coordination. It's
mhm.
making sure that everyone is happy with their lessons, has the materials and everything that they need, making sure that schedules are coordinated, whether the teacher has a conflict or the student has a conflict. We are always working together as a team, myself, the teacher, and the parents, to make sure that everyone has what they need in that regard. And then I am also always working on new student inquiries. We have a steady stream. We're very, 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 very lucky. And a big place for not advertising necessarily, but a way that we get referred a lot is not just word of mouth in person from parent to parent, but in local Facebook groups. So there are a lot of Facebook groups in our area for each individual suburb or greater communities, and we get referred a lot through those areas. So I'm communicating constantly with potential new students and their parents, seeing if we would be the right fit for them, if we have someone
Wow.
available for them. And then there's a whole other component to this, which is planning all of our recitals. So we do 3 to 4 performances each year. Sometimes they're more formal and they're a larger scale. Like we rent the sanctuary of a church from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. on a Saturday or a Sunday. And we have 4 or 5 sets of 20-ish students that perform in those recitals. And we do a big
Wow.
spring recital, a big winter recital. We did a Halloween recital this past year. We do a picnic in the park recital every single summer, which is at a gazebo outside here at a local park. And we rent that out and have like a picnic lunch, and all of the kids can come and perform. So there's a lot of coordination that goes with that too. But honestly, some days I'm kind of just sitting here like everything's good, everyone's
Mhm.
good. I don't have a lot of responsibility right now. And I am still
Yeah.
teaching some of my own students. So I'm not sure how many I was teaching the last time we talked, but um, it's down to 4 now.
Okay. I
So,
think you had like 8 or 9 that you were
okay.
teaching. Oh, that's so good. I'm so glad to hear you're still working at it, because you want to. You wanna still
Yeah.
be teaching, and that's
Yeah.
really
And
nice.
these are the kids that basically started this business with me. They have been here since day one. They are my biggest cheerleaders. I'm sure some of them will listen to this podcast because a couple of my students are now teenagers and they think it's so cool that their teacher is a business owner and is on a podcast. It's very, very sweet how supportive all of them have
I
been.
love it. I love it because a podcast is such a big deal.
It's such a big deal. I mean, I'm very honored to be here, so I'm
You're
glad
so
that they're
sweet.
honored to listen to it on my behalf.
Oh, well, it's so helpful to hear. I am so glad that you're so generous in providing like what you've been through and what you're working on and what it looks like because it can be hard for someone who has just been considering it. It's popped in their mind. We have several TMO members. I mean, at least a few dozen who have mentioned it here. Like, should I? Should I wait? Should I try this? And we have one brand new teacher, Jennifer, and she came to our last launch in February. And the day after the launch, she hired her first teacher because she was so inspired.
That is so exciting. And I know there are several
Yeah.
people that have done it since I joined TMO in 2020. So it's
Mhm.
so cool to see them kind of come through this progression. And even if they haven't been ready to hire yet, some people are
Yeah.
just getting their businesses set up and things put in place in order to be ready to do so when the time is
Yeah.
right for them. And I'm still in touch with a lot of teachers within the community about this on a regular basis in my inbox. And it's so cool to see. But the truth is, I share my experience and I'm really open and honest about it because I didn't have this resource, nor did
Mhm.
I know to even look for it. I was lucky to find the things that I have found over the years. Some of the local Facebook groups, like the Piano Teacher Central or the Teach Music
Mhm.
Online Facebook group, the free resources, but then also some of the paid resources and some really, really wonderful mentors along the way. So
Oh,
we
that's
are not in
awesome.
competition. We are all in
No.
this together as music
How many
teachers
kids
and
are
as
there?
business
How many
owners.
kids are there? I mean,
Yeah.
there are no limit of people who are interested in music lessons. I was just thinking there are
Right.
so many benefits to when you were explaining your recitals. What a cool, it's a lot logistically, but you always have plenty of students to come to a recital. You're never like trying to get people there like, oh, is it going
No,
to be a sparse recital? It's like, no, this is
no.
community. And that's probably why you get so many referrals because they're not just joining this small studio, they're joining the community as well.
Yeah. And I also want to say that works on the teacher side of things too. When I'm interviewing new instructors that are potentially looking to join our team, it is a big emphasis on community. We have an instructor Facebook group. Everybody has access to each other's contact information. We have collaborations happening outside of Lessons by Brooke and Company over the
Mhm.
years for anything from workshops to church performances to other masterworks and things like that, where people have collaborated, our instructors have collaborated. And I think a lot of times as private teachers and then as
Mhm.
performing artists, you kind of end up on your own little island. I've probably said that 1,000 times within TMO, but you feel kind of like, I'm a little bit alone and I don't know who to turn to if I have a question about repertoire or scales or where did you find this PDF of this new Taylor Swift song? Like that, all of these things and more are really important. And I find myself asking questions within our teacher community just as much as some of our teachers do. And we've had a really fun time. We do an annual holiday party and an annual meeting every year where we kind of set goals and intentions and create our new policy together. And I think not
Wow.
just the student family communities benefit from this type of a situation, but it really is the teachers too, and myself included in that.
Oh gosh, that's such a great example. Company ethics, really. Like, what
Mhm.
what are the philosophies? And the fact that you are including them in that shows a lot for you. Like, that's why they've stuck with you because we've all heard horror stories of so and so who worked with this employer and so and so who worked at this brick and mortar and or worked with this person, and it's just like top down management where there's no input, there's no collaboration. And why not,
Yeah,
recognize
I
that there's a
honestly don't
mission.
know. And sometimes I don't have like an exclusivity clause or a non-compete, anything along those lines. I in my interview process, I'm very candid about how I expect people to just be good and honest and intentional human beings. And
Mhm.
if they want to take students on their own, I applaud them for that. If they want to refer students to me, I applaud them for that. If they want to
Mhm.
work for 3 different studios, as long as the conflicts, the schedule doesn't conflict, I'm okay with that. But I do think that what we end up doing in saying top down management and saying this is how things have to happen versus asking for teachers' input is we alienate them as
Yeah.
studio owners and managers. And I really, really encourage anybody that is in this position or that is looking into doing this type of work to think about an inclusive management style because I learned so much from the teachers and all of them, I'm pretty sure, I don't think I'm misquoting them or speaking on their behalf when I shouldn't be, but I think all of them are comfortable calling me if they need anything and talking to me about
Mhm.
anything that's going on within their studios and within their professional lives because they know that I am there for them. I'm their biggest cheerleader. And also that if they come to me with a problem, I'm not going to blame them for any given situation. I'm going to hear them out. We're going to talk through it together and we're going to figure out the best path forward. Because let me tell you, after being in this for, I think January was 8 years. Yeah, January was 8 years. It will, we have been through every single situation you can possibly imagine. We've had
Yeah.
things from situations where we have had to consider calling child protective services. We have been in situations where teachers are injured in people's homes by happenstance and chance. We've had
Mhm.
all kinds of crazy things happen. And be prepared if this is something that you're venturing into because you're going to do things and wear hats that you never thought you would wear before. I always joke and say that I feel like I'm the principal a lot of times because I'm the one who's mitigating the situations and doing the things, but I'm not necessarily in the weeds teaching every single day for all of these
Mhm.
kids. But I also mean that in a really positive way because if you think about your education or if you're a parent, your child's education, the tone and the environment that is set in the school by the principal is really what matters most. And it completely creates the vibe and the environment for the teachers, the students, the parents, for the entire community. And that's the role that you will hold going into this.
Wow.
So this was a big tangent off of your inclusive management strategy here. I think it's really important. And the teachers that work with me and also with other people will tend to compare at times because they have two workplaces and, things are side by side, even though we're providing the same service. And I get a lot of positive feedback from how we do things. And I'm also always open to learning and growing and changing things based on what they see working in other places too. So keeping an open mind and remembering that you are the one that sets the tone for things is so hugely important in this. And it's a lesson that I don't think I even realized I was learning until a few years ago.
Oh my gosh. Well, you're just a good person. You are just innately
sweet.
A good person, and you were brought up by
you,
really
Carly.
good people. Like your parents are really good people, and I bet their parents are really good people. And it comes out when you're trying to like I hate to say it, but I don't think if you're a bad person you could do this. Like I don't think it would
It'd be
last very
hard.
long. Or even if you had like bad intentions, or it was all about the money, or we really have to think about like, why am I doing this?
Yes.
Yes. And is it because I love music and I love these students and I want to share, or is it because I need to make money right now? And I feel like that way, although it could be true, we have to be careful because that will always come across in how we communicate with people, how we treat people.
You have to trust the process and know that if this is a direction that you're going in or somewhere that you're currently sitting right now, that the students will come. You just have to keep doing the next right thing. And I think about that very, very often, especially being put in some difficult situations with parents or students or teachers. You have to just do the next right thing. And if you put your best face forward and you have the best intentions and you are in this for the right reasons, the students will come. Having that type of abundance mindset is really, really important, and not rushing things. I know you touched on this a little while ago, but it was not overnight that I went from 0 students to 10 students. It was a couple of months. And then that 10 turned into 20, turned into 30, turned into 2 teachers, turned into 12 teachers. And now here we are, but it's 8 years and the growth is not linear. We have done, I don't know if anyone's ever seen that meme, but it's like what we think of success, and it's a straight line up to the top of the mountain, and then what success actually looks like. And it's kind of like a wavy line of ups and downs. That is so true. And you have to just be willing to go with it in almost anything in life. But I think especially in something like this, because even though I'm the one who is technically in charge and I'm the one who's manning the ship here, it does not just have to do with me. Everybody else is making this happen just as much as I am. And there will be ups and downs naturally in life.
Oh, that's so great. Well, and what a great note to end on. I think remembering that I have a sticky note on my desk that says love, service, faith. And I come back to those as my motto of everything I do needs to come back to this philosophy. And when we feel ourselves kind of sliding over to the urgency, the lack of skills or the frustration or the pressure that is really all pretend, it's all just made up. I come back to this, like, why am I in this? Like, what am I doing? And it's because I love teachers. At this point, I want to serve teachers, and I have faith that what I'm doing is making an impact. And it's like, okay, I can do this, and I can take a break if I need to. I don't need to like put all this pressure to perform some big thing that is made up.
Because if you're burnt out, you can't do anything for anybody else. It would be so sad to like lose Carly and Teach Music Online to the burnout and to that horrible, like almost like a trap that we can get ourselves into, kind of thinking of the things, all the to-do lists and the tasks and the whatever. And that is going to happen too. And sometimes I'm bogged down just like anybody else. I'm sure you are too, but I love that mantra and that motto, and keeping the little sticky note reminder never hurt anybody. So go on and do that. Be inspired by Carly.
Well, thank you, Brooke. Tell us your website so teachers can come spy on you and see how you
Yes.
do all the things.
Yes, absolutely. We are very transparent here. So all of our pricing policies, all of that are on our website. It's lessonsbybrooke.com, and Brooke has an E at the end of it. So you can find us there. We also are on social media, Lessons by Brooke and Company on Facebook, Lessons by Brooke and Co. Everything spelled out on Instagram. We're not super active on YouTube because copyright issues and all that kind of stuff, but there may be a few
Yeah.
videos up on there. So really it's the website, Instagram, and Facebook anytime.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you, Brooke, for being so generous with
Thank you
all
for
your
having
knowledge.
me. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.